Welcome to the Dr. Jimbo Love Show. We are having a St. Patty's Day edition here.
Woohoo!
Featuring Seth Matthew. He's back. He made it back from Vegas. Bachelor party and all.
Didn't win money, but you know what? I did my best.
Did you? You didn't end up on top of a building like Doug in the movie Hangover.
I watched that right before I left, though. Great movie if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely. So now one thing we had mentioned last week was we were going to get a report from Seth about the facility, the Las Vegas Golden Knights Arena. You were there. Which night were you there, and what did you think about it?
I was there Thursday night watching Boston play the Las Vegas Knights, and it was amazing. So the stadium from the outside wasn't too much to write home about. A lot of the inside was very similar to what we have here for the Avalanche. But the pregame might have been the best thing I've ever seen. They have a whole production of the Golden Knight. It's on the main screen, and then you look down, and he appears on the ice, and there's a whole night battle, and it was just something really fun to watch.
Yeah, my buddy from high school, Timothy Lerner, ex-retired principal in Henderson School Systems, has season tickets.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's constantly posting, and it's really cool to see it. What'd you think of the facility itself? It's new, and
I loved it. They had an upstairs bar. You could overlook the ice. That was open seating. Honestly, the fans were great. Sometimes you get those fans that are real kind of dickheads when you go because it's not their team or whatever that you're rooting for. Now, we were all impartial. Nobody wore any jerseys. Nobody wore Colorado stuff because we weren't playing. But you know what? We had a great time. Beers were reasonable. They had a great party going on outside. It's Vegas. There's a party all the time. And so it was just a really cool place. Everyone was so cool. One of the ushers, I told him it was my bachelor party, and I was like, I just really want to see this. So he gave me my own little private area to watch the pregame. They were just very accommodating and super, super nice people.
Excellent. And then you also, Seth is a big pool player. He plays in a league, and you ran into one of the best pool players in the world, correct?
Yeah, except for that was back here in Colorado.
Oh, it was here. I thought it was in Vegas.
So that was funny because he was actually playing out there when I was out there. They had a players tournament. I believe Filler was there, Shane Van Boney, all the top players, and they had a champions tournament.
What was this guy's name?
Shane Van Boney.
Shane Van Boney.
When I came back, he's the number 3 pool player in the world, right behind Filler and this Austrian guy. I'm blanking on his name. But I was playing in my pool league, and I was shooting and went to take a bathroom break, and I looked at one of the workers like, man, that guy looks a lot like Shane Van Boney. And they go, that is. And so I walked up to him, said hi. He's a super nice guy.
Very
but
good.
Just an amazing player.
No, I love that. Whenever I run into a celebrity or whatever, and that's how I've met so many, is I just walk up to them like a regular person and just say, hey, can I shake your hand? By the way, love to buy you a beer, etc. So, but anyways, now, just notwithstanding, but we have so much material to go over in this show. We're going to start out with college hockey, and then we're going to transition to a deep dive into Champ Week. They don't call it Championship Week anymore, it's Champ Week. We're going to talk about some of the premier conferences and who we think is going to be last in and last out in the bubble for this tournament, based, again, on ESPN's analysis.
Yeah, and they've been changing every day.
Yes, they
you
have.
look at it, Indiana was on the first 4 out, start of the Big Ten tournament, then they were in the last 4 in, and now they're just in. So, a lot of these teams are making these final pushes, and it's altering the whole bracket coming into March Madness.
Yep, and right at the end, we'll go through what the latest is at the very end. So let's talk, though, a little bit about college hockey. We're going to start with our University of Denver DU Pioneers. They played against Miami in the NCHC tournament. And remember, these games are all best of 3. And it looks like DU did a really nice job here at Magnus Arena, winning 5-2. The way the scoring broke down is DU and Miami were tied after the first period. Then DU poured it on in the second and third period, scoring 2 goals apiece. The major difference between DU and Miami squad, and again, this is Miami of Ohio, Ben Roethlisberger's alma mater, is the shots on goal. DU had 38 shots on goal, Miami only 22. Magnus Corona, nice job out there. Very good job stopping all but basically 2 shots on goal. One last thing, and I'm going to turn it over to Seth. DU had 4 5 different scorers, 5 different goal scorers. So they distribute the puck like none other, and I'm very proud of them. It's a great way to start off the road to the Frozen Four.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at these playoff series, it's the same thing in college basketball. Pretty much any sport, when you go against the top tier team, which is Denver, going against the lower seed, the first period they're probably going to hang in there. You know, they're all hyped up. They know they can knock off the number 1 team, make some noise. But in the end, the better team prevailed. Overall, it wasn't a question whether Denver was going. They've already beaten them 4 times this season. Add the 5th one. I expect a sweep today. Overall, it's just a higher caliber team. No disrespect to Miami, Ohio.
Right.
I know that, you know, you're building something. You'll have up and down years. But Denver this year is just the overall better team, and I expect a sweep.
Yeah, I do too. Now, Miami's been in the bottom of the NCHC all season. Not to say that they weren't coming on, because I spoke to my friend Scott Howard, the GM for Cornell University, and he said, better watch out for Miami. Well, it looks like DU took care of business. Cornell University, let's talk a little bit about my hometown team. Cornell played against Colgate at Lina Arena in Ithaca, New York. Big win for Cornell. Now remember, Cornell is full strength. Their coach is back. He is on the sideline. And it's huge because they have not had their coach since December. Their goalie is just playing great right now, Ian Shane. He stopped 16 out of 17 shots, and Cornell won 3-1. The major difference here is Cornell had 43 shots on goal, while Colgate only had 17. So again, with Cornell, they had 3 different scores, and I got a chance to see some highlights, some actual game film of that game, and the people at Lina Arena in Ithaca were going nuts.
Oh, I love it.
What do you got?
So my big thing with Cornell is they're coming on late. They've held in there most of the season. Right now they're on the bubble. A lot of projections don't have them in the tournament, but that could change, just like in basketball. If they were to win this series and maybe get through the next round, all of a sudden it's a different story. But right now, they look like they have a solid chance. They've already played some of the top teams in their division, and they have some splits.
Yes,
you just need the right bounce of the puck, and Cornell can make a run here and find their way into the tournament when it comes here in a couple weeks.
I would love that. Would love that. Now, unfortunately, we got to move on to a kind of a sore subject. Seth's alma mater, St. Cloud State versus Minnesota Duluth. They came up a little short. Duluth won 5-2. The scoring breakdown. It was 1-1 after the first period. It looks like St. Cloud was right in it, and then something happened in the second period. There were 18 shots on goal by Minnesota Duluth. They scored 4 goals that period. Went up 5-2 and never looked back. Yet they scored to a 0-0 third period. What do you think about that game?
So, I mean, this is a difficult game. So, we played Duluth 4 times this year. They've only beaten St. Cloud State twice in overtime. We beat them once in overtime and in regulation. But the timing of this matchup is difficult. We played them last week back-to-back in their home area. They come back here looking for revenge. They also know that they have a lot to prove. Because whoever wins the series is 100% going to be in this tournament. Even if they lose, St. Cloud State and Duluth are both projected in the tournament as it currently stands. But there's teams like Cornell, there's teams that can make a run that can knock them out of the tournament. So St. Cloud State, at minimum, has to make this a 3-game series, whether they win it or not, to make sure they're in the tournament. You got to get a win. So I expect people like Sam Henchins, Kevin Fitzgerald, Nick Parabix. I expect the coach, Brett Larson, to fucking get under these guys' skin and be like, hey, this is do or die time. Are we making the tournament or not? This is where you make your run, and he has to get his team ready.
Yep. So we'll be watching closely. We'll highlight this game in our preview show, which will be either on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. So tune in to us then. You'll see it's a shortened version. We'll give you a little bit of a preview of what happened through Champ Week and also what we expect, because we'll have the brackets will be out on Wednesday. They'll be out actually later Sunday night.
Well, and projections for the tournament is they're projecting, so the first round of the national tournament is split up into 4 different areas. Loveland does get 1, so it's not the Frozen Four, it's the first 4.
Okay.
So they get that round. Denver's predicted to go home to Loveland and actually get a play here in Colorado for their first round. That'd be really good. St. Cloud State's predicted in Albany. But overall, the NCHC is so tough. Even though we only have like 8 or 9 teams, we're predicted to get at least 5 or 6 of them in this tournament. So it's going to be fun to watch.
And remember, University of Denver DU Pioneers won it the regular season very handily. So we've got ourselves just one heck of a hockey team here locally.
And in the last 4 years, we've always had a team in it from our conference. St. Cloud State was in it last year, fell short. Duluth and Denver did 2 repeat seasons where they both went to the championship both times. So, I mean, we always have someone relevant. North Dakota's looking strong this year. So keep an eye on this conference. We're the dominant of college hockey. Very
good. Yeah, I agree. And I wasn't a believer at first. I was an ECAC fan until I really started delving in and watching the quality of hockey. We had a chance, Seth and I were down at Magnus Arena watching St. Cloud State play against our hometown DU Pioneers, and it was amazing how fast that those guys were and how quick they skate to the puck. I mean, they're just incredible speed possessed by these hockey players. All right, so let's delve deeply into Champ Week and talk a little bit about college basketball. Just to give you kind of an idea of the distribution in the top 10, the AP Top 10 final rankings went like this. You've got Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, Auburn, Kentucky at number 5. You've got Kansas, Duke, Villanova, Purdue, and Tennessee rounds out the top 10. Now the rest of it we'll let you look up because you can Google it, but you'll see the second 10 is an interesting mix. But one thing I wanted to just talk about real quick is that we have 3 SEC teams in the top 10. We have 2 Big 12. So those seem to be your strongest conferences finishing out the season. Now it doesn't necessarily mean, because you remember this is the second season and Champ Week is the first really big test for a lot of these teams, and some of this stuff will switch around. What do you think about the top 10? Do you have any feeling about what we're talking about? Do any of these names kind of stick out for you?
Yeah, some of them do. I mean, to make a long run, the Zags are always a question mark for me. They always play a weak conference, and no disrespect to their conference, but besides St. Mary's, there's nobody there. Gonzaga's made their championship 25 straight times, so
great point.
There's a repeat thing there.
St. Mary's finished 17th in the poll. That was the next highest West Coast Conference team, so you're absolutely right.
And then we have some early exits. We had Auburn get upset yesterday, which was crazy. I believe it was by Texas. Was it Texas Tech or Texas A&M?
Let me check here real quick. I'll let you know. It looks like Auburn lost to.
I believe it was Texas Tech.
It is Texas Tech. Or no, that was Texas Tech versus Arkansas. So they lost in the quarterfinals.
So I think Texas Tech is still live. One of the Texas teams beat Auburn.
Oh, Texas Tech.
So they ended up, it was a crazy game. Auburn was down by 20. I thought they were coming back. It was amazing.
So basically, it looks like Auburn's going to be in the SEC. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So maybe it was Texas A&M they lost to.
Yeah. So Texas A&M pulled the upset.
And then they're facing Arkansas today.
Yeah, Arkansas.
We're jumping ahead of ourselves just a little bit.
But like you're looking at some crazy upsets right now. There's talks. Even though we just went over the top 10 teams, there is talks that Kentucky, if they win their game today, can replace one of those top 4 teams because they're not a top 1 seed currently. So there is going to be some shifting here at the end, depending on being eliminated early in your conference. It doesn't matter how you did in your season, because if you don't win your conference, that leaves room for these other teams that might be behind you to get a couple extra games in and replace you for that seed.
And it's also guys too, like an example today in the ACC championship, you've got Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech needs to win against Duke today in order to assure that they're going to be in the conference championship or the NCAA tournament. So you see that too. You've got these teams that would maybe be below the bubble teams, that if they can win their conference out, they're going to get an automatic bid. And chances are that Duke's in, because Duke's finished 7th in the overall standings.
Yeah, and they were number 1 in the ACC all year. They made it to the championship. There's no way to really hold them out. And to be honest, even if they had a mediocre season, who's going to keep Coach K out of the tournament? Nobody's going to do that.
No. And they've earned it. I mean, they've won 27 games this year, and that was before the tournament started. So, they did lose that tough game. Coach K night was kind of spoiled because University of North Carolina came into came into the arena there and just absolutely beat them on Coach K night. So it was kind of a downer for Coach K, but I watched the ceremony afterwards, and it was really interesting how Duke honored Coach K, and they paid a really nice tribute to he and his family, setting up a scholarship that will go, 5 scholarships actually, that will go on after and continue. If they win the NCAA championship, the president of the university assured that there'll be 6 full ride scholarships for people and the Coach K and his wife's scholarship fund.
That's awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about Mountain West. Mountain West is close to home for us. And we had 2 teams in the semifinals, both Colorado State and the Wyoming Cowboys. Unfortunately, both of them lost. And what we're going to see later today at 4 p.m. tonight is Boise State versus San Diego State. Mm-hmm. San Diego State was able to beat Colorado State. They have Colorado State's number.
Yeah.
We saw that game earlier. What were your feelings on that at all? Did you get a chance to see any of that?
So I got to watch a little bit. I mean, Colorado State's having a heck of a season, but even Vegas had it right. Vegas had predicted San Diego State. I think they had them by 6.
Wow, that's quite a big line.
But San Diego State, honestly, I think it's going to end up beating Boise State here coming up. But Colorado State, they made the tournament, so good run. Let's just see if we can make some noise in the big tournament. And then Wyoming.
They're on the bubble.
Another good team that's sitting right there. Now we'll have to wait and see how games turn out today. And you know what? Sometimes we're wrong on predictions. Sure. Sometimes they say last 4 out and they still get in. So I mean, you don't exactly know how the selection committee is going to pick because they do weigh a lot of things, and you just don't know how they're going to value it. So Wyoming could be in. We just don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
And we don't know because the play-in games too they're reserved for teams that are up and coming. So, when they talk about the last 4 out and stuff like that, that's we don't know if they're talking about the 68 teams or the 64 teams. Mm-hmm. But Wyoming right now is on that, and as of ESPN's prediction this morning at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m., they are one of the final 4 teams that are basically in right now. So hopefully they did enough work in this Mountain West tournament that they will be one of the teams, because it'd be great to see Colorado State and Wyoming both in the tournament.
Well, and not to confuse people, when we say last 4 in, that doesn't mean they're the 16th seed. They are weighted differently. Lesser conferences that don't have as high competition, they usually get the 16th seed. They could even win their conference and be 16th seed. The last 4 in could put you at an 8, 7, 6. You just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see where everybody falls in this tournament.
Absolutely. Now, Big Ten, you had the premier teams of the Big Ten, which was Wisconsin, Illinois, Purdue, and Iowa were your top 4 teams that finished. I've drawn a line across because Iowa's won 24 games. Ohio State, who's sitting in the 5th position, only won 19 games this year, and they didn't really go too far in the Big Ten tournament. We have the quarterfinals, and we have Indiana, Iowa, Michigan State, and Purdue, which are still, we're still alive. And today we're going to be able to watch the winners of those games, which is Iowa versus Indiana at 1 o'clock, and then at Michigan State. And again, just like Seth called it, Michigan State, who finished, looks like number 7th in the regular season. Again, we've got coach there, and he's just a fantastic coach. Gets them to the Final 4 in the tournament today, and they're going to have a chance to play against Purdue, which finished 3rd, and the winner of those 2 will play tomorrow in the championship game.
I think the big surprising thing for me is Indiana. Indiana is a team, even last year and this year, they just struggle to win. They're never out of the game.
No.
They usually have leads by halftime, but then they fall apart every time. And that's kind of been the tale of their season again this year. At points, I looked at Indiana, I was like, wow, this team has a shot to win the Big Ten.
Yep.
But then they started crumbling near the end of the season. And come tournament time, they end up getting a good Michigan win. They end up beating Illinois, the number 1 seed. And so, you know what? I'm not picking them to beat Iowa because Iowa, I think, is a force. They were a force last year. Matt Garza's not there anymore, but he carried them all the way before. I believe they lost to Loyola Chicago.
Okay.
But he's a pro now. But this Iowa team has depth. They're good. I honestly think they're going to be in the Big Ten championship. I can't pick between Purdue and Michigan State. I'm a big Tom Izzo fan, and
too.
Purdue, I think, has more talent, but Tom Izzo, just what a coach.
It's the Izzo factor.
Yeah.
So we'll see now. Michigan State's firing on all cylinders right now. So let's see what happens. And again, this is one of the few conferences that are playing their championship game tomorrow on Sunday, which makes, used to be Sunday was all the championship games, but a lot of them are finishing up on Saturday, so their teams can get back home and they can watch the selection show from their campus. So it's going to be a treat tomorrow. All right, so let's talk about the ACC. And the ACC, we've been talking about them all season. They had a kind of a rough year.
Yep.
You had Duke, UNC, Notre Dame, Miami, Wake Forest, and Virginia Tech, all won over 20 games this year. But if you know from our talk earlier, really Duke is the only ACC team that's in the top 10, which is very, very rare to see for such a strong conference. We had Friday's game. Duke played against Miami. I had a chance to watch that game from start to finish. Miami jumped out, looked really strong, and I'll tell you what, folks, mark this on your bracket. Miami has a bunch of 6-year seniors. They have a lot of experience. They played extremely well yesterday, and they had Duke on the ropes. But you got to remember, Duke has 5 guys that probably will go in the draft. They may all go in the first round. We're looking at a team that's very similar to that Kentucky team that won the national championship and had 5 first-rounders. So UNC did not fare very well. Virginia Tech, okay? Think about Virginia Tech, 22-12. I think they've done enough by getting to the finals that you're going to see them in the tournament with 22 wins. And they're facing Duke, and that game will be at 6:30 Mountain Standard Time tonight.
Yeah, and the big question right now is, so Xavier's listed as the last 4 in, and Virginia Tech's on the last 4 out still. The reason why, even though it shouldn't play weight, and they say it doesn't, Xavier did beat Virginia Tech by 1 point earlier this season.
Sure.
Now, we'll have to see how this game pans out, because me as an ACC fan, I like Duke. I would like to see the Duke-UNC rematch. I didn't get that. So Virginia Tech, I'm sure they're going to put up a good fight, but I still think it's going to be Duke. This is Coach K's record-setting 22nd ACC championship game that he's made it to. It's his final goodbye. These players are going to be motivated. Banchero is hands down a top 5 draft pick in this NBA draft coming up. So I think they have the talent. I think Virginia Tech's played out of their mind. But at some point, I think the streak has to end, and I think it ends today.
Well, the one thing, too, is because Duke lost that last regular season game against North Carolina on Coach K night, I think you're going to see a very highly motivated Duke team. They started out slow yesterday against Miami, and then they came on just like a freight train and just overpowered them with talent. And it's hard when you have such a talented squad like Duke does, and the coaching that Duke's coaching is, with Coach K and Shire, just top notch.
It does worry me though, like starting next year when Coach K is gone, you already see UNC isn't the dominant force they were with Roy Williams.
Right.
And now you have Coach K leaving, so Duke might fall off a little. ACC might not be relevant. The one conference you got to keep an eye on is the Big Ten is getting better and better.
Right.
I predict them to have the most teams out of any conference in this tournament. But this is a last hurrah for Duke. Probably an ACC team for a while. I think that the ACC is going to go through a rebuild because it's going to take probably. How long do you think it takes coaches to get their own recruits and start building something?
Well, that just depends, because now you saw Coach K, and this year he's got 5 McDonald All-Americans starting, and all 5 of these guys could potentially go in the first round. Normally it takes, if you're thinking about building a team, traditionally speaking, it's about 3 years for you to go through a rebuild. But you got to remember, John Shire and Duke, the reason Coach K picked his successor is because it's going to be a smooth transition. And all the people that they've been recruiting, you got to remember, a team like Duke has been recruiting these kids since they've been in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So if there's continuity and a change, it's not as tough as if you bring in a coach from another different program altogether. So I look for Duke really not to miss a beat. Now, you lose 5 of your top starters to the draft, you are going to have to rebuild a little bit, because you figure all the guys that were playing the year before and getting all the experience are going to be gone.
Well, and that's what Duke's done, though. They've really gotten on that John Calipari, thing where they can lose 5 guys, one and dones, and they get 5 more one and dones. We'll see if they can keep reloading, or maybe the new coach starts keeping players for 3 years, and they really build something, and they can get the experience, and they can become a talented team.
So that's what I'm hoping. We've talked about this in the past. Between the transfer portal and the one and dones, it's sometimes really frustrating as a college basketball fan to watch the next season because you're looking at a whole completely different team than what you saw last season. So once again, that's a downside. You never used to see that in college basketball. I'd really like them to change the rule and make it at least 2 years you have to stay, if not 3 like the NCAA football does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Big 12, going into the Big 12, let's talk about our first 5 teams really that were good. You had Kansas that finished number 1, Baylor 2, Texas Tech 3, Texas 4, and TCU was number 5. Each of those teams won more than 20 games. Again, 20 games is kind of your standard for getting into the NCAA tournament at an at-large bid. If you're under 20 games, you almost have to win your tournament to get in. We have Friday night's game. We had KU beating TCU yesterday, 75 to 62. And then you had Texas Tech and Oklahoma. Oklahoma just about edged them out at a real tough number 7 seed, and it was a 56-55 game. KU will play Texas Tech today at 4 p.m. Make sure you come down to Brothers. We've got more basketball than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah, and we're kind of Kansas fans. We do have a Lawrence, Kansas store, so we do root for KU. And I really think that this game is going to just be one of the most electric games today. Kansas is one of the toughest teams to play in college basketball. Mm-hmm. And right now they have, I'm going to probably butcher his name, but his name is Oche Ogabaji. He shoots 50% from the field. He gets 20 points a game. And to put that in perspective, when we just set a score, college teams usually put up like 70 points. So you're going that he almost scores over 30% of his team's points. So just a superstar on Kansas. And I don't think Texas Tech's going to be able to keep up. I think Kansas is going to win every side of the ball. I predict them to win. I'm going to say they win by at least 8, maybe 10.
I think so too. And I watched them play yesterday, and they just absolutely dominated TCU. I mean, it was not even close. I mean, they were up by 20 in the first half, and they just never looked back in the second half. Anything else for that you want to talk about the Big 12?
No, just go Jayhawks. Let's see how it goes.
I'm hoping for Kansas too. I like Bill Self. All right, Pac-10 regular season. The top 4 teams were Arizona finished 1. You had UCLA number 2, USC number 3, and Colorado, our University of Colorado out of Boulder, finished number 4. Each of them won 20 or more games. You had Arizona versus Colorado, and unfortunately, our Buffs from just up the road here did not have enough power to get past Arizona. They lost 82 to 72 yesterday. UCLA, who's in the second position, beat University of Southern California, or USC, 69 to 59. Championship game today is at 7 o'clock tonight. Nice late game if you want to watch it. You've got Arizona versus UCLA, 1 versus 2. What do you think?
See, one of my favorite things about this type of matchup, so everyone always has like a best player, whether it's a center. It's sometimes rare to find that you find the 2 players that will be guarding, playing one-on-one against each other, are in the same position that are the best players, and that's what we have here today. We have Benedict Mathurin versus Johnny Juzong for Arizona versus UCLA. So this should be an electrifying matchup. We're looking at 20 points per game on both these guys. They both carry their teams. Both can go off at any moment. And this is a statement game for them. This is where you fight to take a higher seed in the tournament. And I'm giving the edge to Arizona. I just think they have all it takes. Watching them play CU yesterday, they look like they're a high-caliber team, going to make some noise in the tournament.
Yeah, they really did. They handled CU, and it was, I was hoping so much, especially because we had Wyoming lose, we had Colorado State lose yesterday, and we had University of Colorado lose.
Things happen in threes.
Yes, at least University of Denver hockey won, so we've got something positive. And Air Force pulled out a victory in their hockey game in overtime, 5-4. All right, let's move on to the West Coast Conference. and that's been dominated by the Zags, and it's one of the weaker conferences, as Seth said earlier. Basically, you had the Zags, St. Mary's, Santa Clara, that's Steve Nash's alma mater, San Francisco, and BYU. All of them won over 20 games, but it really, to look at it, you've got St. Mary's that just ranked 16 in the final AP poll. I don't know if you think St. Mary's is going to make it. Do you think they've done enough to make the tournament? I think possibly because they finished, 16, they'll get in. But basically, the Zags beat San Francisco 81-71 to win the West Coast Conference. What do you think about that West Coast Conference?
So I think St. Mary's will get in. I think there'll be a lower, like the bottom half of the seeding, so probably sitting at like a 9 to maybe 11.
Sure. Anyone else? Do you think that Santa Clara, San Francisco, or BYU with 21, 24, and 22 wins respectively will get in?
I don't. I'm not even sure. I believe Gonzaga should be a 1 seed. I mean, they played amazing this season. They did schedule. I give them credit. They didn't do the cupcake schedule that they normally do because obviously you can't help your conference. So they
finished number 1 though in the AP rankings.
But they lost to Duke early. They lost to a couple other teams. You lost to St. Mary's, so that would be like if Duke lost to, I don't know. Well, let's just go. They did lose to Florida State,
to UNC,
and UNC.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like dropping a game like that or two. That Gonzaga is the biggest headache for me when it comes to filling out my bracket because record-wise and ranking-wise, they're always a 1.
Sure.
But then when I get there, they usually lose by like second, third round. But I usually don't predict them to lose because they're a number 1 seed. You look at that record. If you just go off name and you read the record, now this Gonzaga team's different. I mean, last year they had Terrell. What was his name?
Timmy?
Nope. Yeah, well, they had Jeff Timmy.
Yeah.
But they had a guy that went pro that was their point guard.
The guard.
Yeah, from
really
Minnesota.
Good. Absolutely.
Who's a reason why.
And we'll check his name. We'll get his name. We'll get a name check on you. But, they've got Timmy, and then they've got what I think is the premier young player of in the total NCAA tournament, the 7-footer, number 34, Holmgren.
Yep, that's what I was looking for, Mitch Holmgren. So this team is built differently. They're built well with bigs. They are overall balanced. They do spread the ball. Duke exposed them a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how this works out because what happened in the Duke game, I know it was a long time ago. It was at the beginning of the season. But what they did was they attacked Jeff Tim and Holmgren right away and put them in foul trouble. That kept them out of the game, and it gave Duke the edge for the win. Yeah. So if they play in Iowa or they play one of these top-tier teams and those two get in foul trouble, this Gonzaga team, even though they have a decent amount of depth, can't really hang in there because they don't have a lot of depth behind those two.
Yeah, but those two are such a dynamic duo. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got your best 2 big men. Well, not the 2 best, but 2, I think, of your top 5 big men in the tournament playing on the same team. And I'm telling you, if you get a chance to watch this freshman play, he is the real deal.
Well, and Gonzaga does it right. No disrespect to the one-and-dones, but how many one-and-dones do you hear in Gonzaga? Not a lot. They always get to keep their players for 3-4 years. So they build this experience. That's the other thing that throws you off. If Gonzaga's a number 1 seed, maybe they get eliminated early one year because everyone was like a sophomore, but they all come back in their juniors where all these other teams are rebuilding with freshmen, right, or they're not rebuilding at all. So Gonzaga has the talent and the experience to make a real run at this national title.
Oh, I think so too.
And I think really they're built that they could do it.
I do. I would love to watch a Gonzaga Duke matchup. It's going to depend whether it'll be in the Final Four or whatever. But I think what you're going to see if Duke wins today, they're both going to be number 1 seeds. It'll just be interesting on which part of the bracket they fall in. Will they play each other in a national semifinal, Final Four game, or will they be in opposite lineups so that they have a chance to play for a national championship?
See, unfortunately for me, I don't think Duke gets to a 1 seed only because Notre Dame got exited out too early. And you know what? Even though Virginia Tech's having a heck of a tournament, nobody's going to bat an eye at that. Their regular season performance didn't really speak volume. So it's not
they finished 7th.
So they're not really playing a top tier team like Tennessee, Kentucky.
Yep.
Those are 2 top tier teams. Yep. So that's going to help them move up. So since it is the underdog story, if Duke wins, it's no surprise. If they lose, it's a shocker. Virginia Tech gets an automatic bid.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I think that we're looking at Duke at a 2 seed, and you know what? It's going to be interesting because I'm guessing they're going to end up in Kansas's bracket, and Kansas will be the 1 seed. So that should just be an amazing, fun matchup to watch.
Very good. We don't want to be remiss. We're going to talk about the SEC. Remember, the SEC had the 3 teams in the top 10, finishing out Tennessee at number 10. And we had semifinals. And what's great about this is you get to see the semifinals today. You've got Texas A&M versus a really hot Arkansas team right now. Arkansas is a great, fun team to watch. You also have Kentucky, my game, the game I cannot wait to watch. It starts at 1:30. Get your butt down to Brothers Bar and Grill at the shops of Northfield. And I'm telling you, talk about a high-quality game. You've got Kentucky versus Tennessee. And tomorrow, of course, the winner of both those games will be playing in the championship game on Sunday. So you have some really great basketball for tomorrow as well. What are your feelings on the SEC?
So this one's interesting for me because I had a chance to watch Texas A&M upset Auburn, and at one point of that game, Texas A&M was up by 20, and I was like, where's the number 1 seed Auburn? And Auburn came roaring back. They got it within 4 with like a minute left. They almost came back to end Texas A&M.
Right.
But if Texas A&M can play how they did in that first half against Auburn, they're a real threat. And I know not a lot of people are really predicting them to win this conference, but watching the type of basketball that they played yesterday, I think they have a real shot. But, I mean, you still got a really tough Kentucky team. You still have a real tough Tennessee team. Either one that comes out of there. I wouldn't be surprised to see either one win. Kentucky in the past, I think, has always kind of had the edge. But this Tennessee team this year, bunch of veterans, very big, very athletic, and very quick.
What do you think? What are your predictions out of these Final Four? Who do you see winning the SEC?
So I would take, going on, I'm going to say Arkansas is going to end up playing Kentucky in the finals, and I'm giving the edge to Kentucky.
You are. Excellent. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to pick Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to pull out a victory over Kentucky, and they're going to take that momentum. They're going to play against Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to be too much for Texas A&M to handle, and I think you're going to see a Tennessee-Arkansas final with Tennessee pulling it out. That's my prediction. Now I'm going out on a little bit of a limb because if I was a safe betting man, I'd go with what Seth said. Excellent. Well, good. Well, thank you very much. That is pretty much all we have for the NCAA tournament. Let's talk really quick here. Again, we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. We're talking about who is considered the last 8 teams according to ESPN. And what we've got is, let's do it. Last 4 in is Wyoming, Michigan, SMU, and Xavier. As of 10 o'clock this morning, that's what ESPN is predicting. The first 4 out, Virginia Tech. Now remember, Virginia Tech beats Duke. Forget about it. They're in automatically. Oklahoma. Seth, are you an Oklahoma fan in basketball a little bit, or is it just for football?
So I follow them in everything. Last year they had a good year. I don't think they get it. I think Oklahoma's going to NIT, unfortunately. I think if they would have pulled off that win yesterday, they would have been in. But, you fall short sometimes.
Yeah. And then the final 2 is Wake Forest and Dayton. Dayton, a tough team, that plays in a conference that's not very, very notable. I'd like to see if Dayton can squeak in. It's those teams like that sometimes make a good run to the Sweet 16, and they creep up on some of these higher seed teams, especially after they come out of their conference championship tournament, especially if they're beat up a little bit.
See, and the team I feel bad for is Wake Forest here. Now, if this was the ACC over the last 10 years, and Wake Forest is where they're at, 100% they're in. But this year, due to the ACC being weaker, and where Wake Forest is sitting, and they had an early exit out of the tournament, they're most likely not getting in. And they had a heck of a season this year, but just due to the quality of wins and due to the quality of the conference, it's just unfortunate because the better the conference you have, you look at the Big Ten, you have people like Indiana, I believe, maybe they're at 20 wins now if you include the tournament. Right. I don't think they went in with 20 wins. And now they're in. Yes. They could afford the 11 losses because their conference is so revered. So I do feel bad for Wake Forest, but unfortunately, you are the last 4 out. I don't think you're going to make it in.
Indiana started the tournament 20-12, so they do have the 20 wins.
Okay, they did make it to the
So they ended up getting, I think, 22 wins they're at, right?
Yep.
So, well, anyways, let's talk a little bit about part 2. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. Now, what we want to definitely encourage you to do is this is one of the best basketball days of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the parade going on, the St. Patty's Day parade going on downtown Denver. If you folks are listening to us, and I know there's probably a ton of you guys that are on the parade route that are streaming us, please come to Brothers afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot beat today for basketball, for quality of basketball. Now, next weekend is hard to beat because, of course, the tournament's going to be in full swing. But the best part about today is anybody that you lose or watch that loses, it's not the end of their season. Chances are the teams you see playing this weekend will be in the tournament. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard sometimes to watch these seniors play their last game, and that's what you'll see next week. You'll see a lot of heartbreak and you'll see a lot of celebration. But come down to Brothers Bars at the shops in Northfield and come on in and check it out. Seth will get whatever game you possibly can. I know I position myself so I'm in the middle of 3 TVs with a fourth and a fifth so that I can watch 5 different games while I'm sitting here this afternoon. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, you can't get better basketball until, next week starts it again. It's really exciting and leads you into more excitement. Now, if you get a chance, watch the selection show, make a bracket.
Oh, yes.
Even if you don't put money on it, it's always fun to see how you do. Now, last year I did terrible. There were so many upsets.
There were.
Because it's the same thing we talk about college hockey when the NCHC gets to the tournament and they play one of these East Coast teams. Same thing happened. I mean, I remember the year Duke was the number 2 seed. They played number 15 Norfolk University and lost. We had Virginia get upset as the only number 1 team ever to lose in the NCAA tournament. And
second time ever for a 1 seed to lose to a 16. Was it the second time? I think, or maybe it was the first time.
It was the first time ever.
Okay, so that was crazy because there's been a bunch of 2-15s that have lost, and one of them was a heartbreak in 1991. The Richmond Spiders beat my Syracuse Orangemen, a team that I think could have won the NCAAs. So, even 15-2 matchups aren't guaranteed.
And typically there's always a Cinderella story. You look, Loyola Chicago's been one for a while. Davison with Steph Curry really pulled it on. And I believe, did he make it to the Final Four or Elite Eight?
It was Elite Eight.
He made it far.
And then you had George Mason, which was a play-in team that made it all the way to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Loyola Chicago made it to the Final Four.
And don't forget Wichita State Shockers.
Yes.
They made it pretty far. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yes.
They had a great run. So,
who's it going to be this year? Do you have any predictions? Who do you think can make a long run? Who's going to be an 8 seed or lower?
So, and that's what we're going to have to see because I haven't got to see all these teams because Norfolk University never heard of. So they got to make their little run. And there's always a no-name team where you sit there and you're like, who is this? You look at the records. They're usually pretty good. But there's always that unnamed school or a school that hasn't been relevant in a while.
Here's your top 20.
Makes a run.
Any of these squads that you have a funny feeling might make a run?
If I had to pick one, I'm going to go all the way down to Murray State.
Murray State? Okay. My prediction is Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And I also like Miami. I think both those teams you're going to see that could make a very long run. And you think Murray State? Murray State is currently and finished the season at 19.
Yep.
So let's see how well we do, and we'll be able to see that more by next Saturday's show when we get a chance to talk about the entire first round games. And we're going to be highlighting 32 games next week, so you don't want to miss our show next week.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is it'll be easier to predict next week who this underdog team's going to be because we get to see the bracket.
We'll be already through the first round.
Be through the first round. So
we'll be able to predict it, I think. We'll go on our preview show, and we'll have a chance to be able to change. If you want to change from Murray State, go ahead.
Because if Murray State gets like somebody like Kansas in the second round, there's no way I'm picking them.
Absolutely. And same thing with Arkansas, and I want to see how they play today. And the other teams that we picked as well, see how far that they will go. Miami. Now, Miami, the only reason I picked them to go deep is because they have 2 guys that are 6th year seniors.
Oh, see?
I mean, it's crazy. This one kid has played over 150 college basketball games for Miami. That's crazy.
And experience does play a big part in this.
I mean, that's like being there for, basically 2 college careers.
Yeah.
All right, for our part 2 show, we're going to basically talk about Aaron Rodgers. We're going to talk about the Russell Wilson trade. We're going to talk about Khalil Mack and his trade to the San Diego Chargers. We'll look into Brittany Griner. Seth has a sweet spot for Brittany Griner because she won him a national championship, or I should say a WNBA championship with Minnesota, correct?
I don't think she played for us.
She didn't? I thought
No.
she said she won.
No, Brittany Griner won it for Baylor, and she set the all-time record for most dunks ever in a WNBA
Did she
game
ever play
or
for the
college.
Minnesota team?
No,
Okay.
Brittany Griner came from somewhere else. We had
Sorry about that.
Lisa Leslie. We had another girl from Minnesota that was just a phenomenal player. But we were built well. The Lynx have not won in a while now. But hey, most recent championship we're ever going to get. So
well, I'm telling you, she's facing a really tough situation. She's facing 10 years in prison in Russia. We're going to cover that whole situation, what's being done by our representatives here in the United States trying to get her back. But we're right in the middle of a war with the Russian-Ukrainian war, actually, where we don't know what's going to happen. And if I was Brittany Griner, I would be scared to death. She spent 3 weeks in a holding cell in the airport. 3 weeks. I mean, that's got to be just absolutely hell on earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also we're going to talk a little bit about the baseball. Thank God the owners and the players were able to come to an understanding. Again, we had millionaires arguing with billionaires. It looks like the billionaires won out, but both sides got a little bit of what they wanted, and the best thing about it is we're going to have baseball. It's going to start on Jackie Robinson's Day, April 15th. So get ourselves psyched for that. The last thing we'll talk about is just a little bit about Buddy Boeheim and the punch that he threw, and having to sit out, and some of the comments that his dad, the coach Jim Boeheim, said. And it's kind of interesting how his dad reacted to the situation.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. Well, thank you very much. Come on back. We will see you very shortly. Remember, come down to Brothers Bar and Grill. Come on down, watch some games with us. Come and see Seth and I. Seth, anything you take us out?
Yeah, come on down here. We'll have all the games on. Some of them have already started. I know the Big Ten games have started already. So get on down here. Come drink some green beer. We got green Coors Light. And, be festive.
Absolutely. And we just saw Cornell lose to Princeton in a nail-biter.
Heartbreaker.
And it's just sad, but I'm telling you, even those kind of games that you can watch, these Ivy League championships, are just incredible basketball TV. Turn on your sets, come on down to Brothers. We'll see you shortly, and don't forget to tune into part 2 of our show. Thank you very much.